Hello, family, and welcome to another great segment of Sound Mind. My name is Bryant Collier, and I am so excited that you've decided to join us today. Listen, I'm here in my living room having a conversation with you today, and we are just excited about your support of what you've given to not just the Hope TV, but Sound Mind specifically. So, as I always do, I want to say thank you first for everything that you do, coming back week after week as we supply you with great content about mental and emotional health. But in addition to that, I'm going to ask that you share this stream with 5 people. If you can do that for me, share with 5 people so we can get it out there. We want to share this topic today because it's going to be really good. We're going to be talking about setting boundaries. It's going to be amazing. Now, before we do that, I want to first thank some people that are working behind the scenes. My assistant producer, Lakeisha, the behind the scenes staff for everything they do to make Hope TV great. Now, we haven't seen her in a few weeks, but I'm happy that she's made some time to join us again. She is a licensed professional counselor. She is sought over teaching master classes for all over the country. She is definitely an expert in her field. I am happy to call her sister. We're going to be sitting on her couch today. Will you welcome Dr. D. Monique?
Hey!
Welcome back. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Listen, it's been a while since we had you. The last time we saw you, we were talking about your book, I Said What I Said. Tell us, how's the book sales been going? And I've heard you've also been doing some master classes.
Yes, so the book sales are going great. Amazon bestseller list in 2 categories. So to God be the glory for that. And yes, I'm hosting a masterclass, another one at the end of this month. And yeah, so been doing a masterclass earlier this month. We're in September. Yeah, we're in September. And some appearances with my friend, Dr. Crystal Clay in Bermuda. So it's been wild, but it's been great.
That's amazing. Let me tell you, I've heard from so many people who have purchased your book about how beneficial it's been to them, and we're grateful to have you here. So listen, let's jump right to it because we know time runs out too fast when we get together.
Yeah.
I want to talk about boundaries today because let's be honest, some of us have made it through a pandemic and been quarantined, but we still don't know how to set boundaries. And some of us are exhausted right now because of that. Dr. D. Monique, we're sitting on your couch. Can you help us to work through boundaries today?
So boundaries, I call it the other B word. And so, yeah, the other B word. And that's a thing that we know we need, but a lot of us, like you said, we don't know how to set them. We don't know what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. And so when it comes to that in general, when someone says, well, what's appropriate as a boundary? Whatever you feel like you need as a boundary. Because what I see as boundaries in my life, you may not necessarily set those same things as boundaries in your life. So it's what you feel is appropriate for your life. I will say this, the biggest thing as it relates to boundaries, whatever you permit, you promote.
Woo! Can you say that one more time for the saints in the back?
Whatever you permit, you promote. So the first rule of boundaries, you have to know what it is that's acceptable and understand if I permit something to happen, then in essence, I'm promoting that behavior from other people.
Woo. I don't know about y'all right now, but I just need a moment because I'm already wrecked. I just want to stop the show now. Let's sign off because it's too much. Doc, what you permit, you promote. So I have a question. This is just for strangers that we come in contact with, right?
It's for strangers. It's for family, friends. Strangers will honor boundaries before people that you know will. Because what happens, they honor they will, because they honor their internal boundaries. You know, most people you don't know won't just tend to off the bat violate you. It's people that you know, that you come in contact with at work, at church, at home, family members, friends that don't quite get boundaries. But why don't they get boundaries? A lot of it is because we haven't set them. And what we'll do, we'll get mad or feel some type of way when someone does something, but we never told them that we didn't want them to do it. We never told them that we didn't like for them to do it. But we slick get mad when they do it. But if I didn't know it was an issue, I didn't know you didn't want me to do it, then how do I know not to do it?
So let's go. Let me back up a few steps really quickly. What are signs that I probably am not setting boundaries? What are some signs that would suggest that I'm not setting boundaries?
You walk away from either conversations with people or interaction with people feeling some type of way about something they said or something they did. Let me give you a good example. If you don't like people shouting at you or speaking loudly, and you're in a social setting or whatever, and someone gets angry and they start screaming and hollering, you don't address it, then you leave later and call somebody else to say, well, I didn't like the way Danielle talked to me. Did you hear how she was screaming and hollering at me? I don't like, well, she's screaming and hollering because one, you permitted her to scream and holler, and two, you didn't set the boundary after it happened, apparently the first time. And so she doesn't know that it's a problem. I don't know if it's a problem with screaming and hollering because you never told me I couldn't.
Ooh. And you know what? It reminds me of a quote from Zora Neale Hurston. She said, if you are silent about your pain, they will kill you and say you enjoyed it.
Exactly. Or what I'll do is I talk to everybody like this. Well, just because you talk, so a boundary is just because you talk to everyone like this, you're not going to talk to me like that.
Right.
Because I can't control what you do, but I can control me talking to you. So boundaries are not, because a lot of times people think boundaries are about control. Well, you can't control me. I'm not going to be controlled by anybody. It's not about controlling anyone. It's about controlling me. It's about ordering my private world. I know Pastor Paul Little at Build Mount Zion did a lot of teachings on ordering your private world. Well, I can't control what you do, but I can control my interactions. And then I can set boundaries or expectations for behavior. And when you don't follow them, then I have to have an immediate consequence. And that consequence is just removing myself from your presence.
Because I matter more. I have to put myself at the priority place. Right.
We don't do that. Now, we prioritize everyone else's feelings above our own and what everyone else wants and expects above us. But then we're upset and angry and frustrated when we don't get what we think we should get, but we never told anybody we should get it.
So over time, if one does not build boundaries, what are some of the mental and emotional effects that can come from that type of lifestyle?
Emotional drainage, just tired, feeling worthless, feeling helpless, feeling hopeless. Because if you don't set boundaries, that means people do anything. They talk to you any kind of way. They treat you any kind of way. They say anything. They borrow money and don't pay it back. You know, it's just that anything goes. And so you start feeling like, well, why are people treating me like this? Why won't people respect me? And then depression, all of these things come as a result of not setting boundaries because, again, you permit, you promote.
Okay, I got to go here because I know there's some people that probably need to have this conversation, and they probably don't want to hear this, but they need to hear this. Let's talk about setting boundaries with family. Now, this is difficult because we love mama, we love daddy, you know, we always the one they can run to and go to, our siblings, our children, you know, we want to be there for them. Dr. D. Monique, we're sitting on your couch. How do we manage boundaries with family members?
Well, the first thing we have to do is know what boundaries that need to be set. And so if you have family that sees you as the Wells Fargo of the family, then you have to start setting boundaries when it comes to ATM withdrawals. My bank, Wells Fargo, only let me take out so much. And then somebody's going to call you and say, "Ooh, we see some overactivity on your account. Everything all right? Is that you using your card?" Well, it's the same because why? They're setting a boundary saying that you can only spend this amount, before we think it's suspect activity. And then they give me a withdrawal amount. I don't care how much you have in the bank. Wells Fargo say you can only take out this much. Well, if I don't like it, then I just got to bank somewhere else because that's just their boundary. We let you withdraw this much out of your ATM, out of the ATM every day. That's your daily limit. Well, with people, we have to have limits. So I will let you borrow this amount. And if you don't return it in the time frame that you said you were going to return it, then I will no longer let you borrow money. I didn't give it to you on a payment plan. I don't want it back on a payment plan. And whenever we decided mutually that you would pay it back, that's when I expect it back. So that's a boundary. And I will only let you borrow a certain amount of money. That's a boundary. Right. So if my internal boundary is $100, and you come and say, but I really need 500, my car note behind. The moment that I give you the 500, then I violated that boundary. So you're going to come back next time and ask for 1,000.
Because I permitted it. I permitted it.
Yes.
And so then I promoted it. So,
exactly.
So how do you work? Because there's going to be some people here, but like, they're going to say, well, they really need me. Like this is like, I don't want to just leave them out there. What do we say to them?
What we say to them is they don't really need you. You become codependent on their need for you. Because if you don't do it, they'll find somebody else to.
I felt somebody over there on this side of the room this time needed to hear that. They will find somebody else. And you'll get caught up. You'll get caught up allowing people to rip you off and take from you just to feed your own internal issues.
Exactly. It's the guilt of, well, if I don't pay their light bill, their lights are going to get turned off. Maybe their lights need to be turned off so they can learn how to pay their own bills. I mean, I'm just saying, you don't have to be the savior of everyone. Again, if you set boundaries, because this is the thing, if I pay my own bills, which is, within the bounds of what I feel like is appropriate, you pay bills, then why would I allow someone else to violate a principle that I practice in my life? They don't practice the same principle. So I hop over in their lives to save them from principles they don't practice that I practice. That doesn't make sense.
It don't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So now there's some different relationships. We move from family and then you got friendships. Those are, a lot more intimate because this is your family. You got to pick, these are your eight spoon crews. These are the people that you hung out with. You have emotional life stories with them. You've connected. But it seems like our friends sometimes can ask more of us and they should know better. How do we work through and have more discernment in seeing when we're being pulled down beyond that point of our boundary level?
Well, the first thing you said is they should know better. How would they know better if you don't tell them better? So we have unrealistic expectations of people saying, well, you ought to know not to borrow money and not pay it back. Well, how would I know that? That's what I do. I borrow money and I don't pay it back. So how would I know better? If you knew better, you would do better. So the person that borrows money and never returns it, that couldn't be really a practice in their life if people didn't continue to let them borrow money. It's because, well, they ought to know if you borrow from something. Well, obviously they don't know that. Well, let's help teach them. Don't let them borrow any more money. So even with friends, you enter a friendship though, and I'll say this, you enter a friendship setting boundaries. What we normally do, we get into a friendship, we let people violate boundaries, and then we try to go behind and reestablish or reset what we should have set from the beginning. Because I promise you, had you set a lot of those from the beginning, a lot of your friends wouldn't be your friends.
And setting boundaries, it sounds like you're telling me setting boundaries will purge our friend list.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, it really will. Because a lot of people don't like to operate within boundaries. Or you find that your life ain't really aligned with the expectations I have for friendship. But a lot of times our need for belonging and our need for having friends, we just enter in friendships and we don't say anything. And then everything starts unfolding and unraveling in this, well, I don't like for you to curse me out. I don't like this and I don't like that. But if that's who that person is, then had you set those boundaries up front, y'all wouldn't be friends right now. And that wouldn't be an issue. So we play victim a lot of times to circumstances we create.
Woo, we play victim to circumstances we create. We play victim. Is somebody writing that down? Can somebody put that in the comments for me real quick? We play victim to what?
Circumstances we create. So if you choke me on a Monday, and I don't want you to choke me, I don't like you choking me, but then I hang out with you again on Wednesday and you say, let's go get something to eat. And then we get into another argument and you start shaking me and all of that. Then I go tell my other friend, Bryant choked me and then he snatched me and he did. Well, how did I play a victim to the circumstance I created? Because at the first sign that Bryant was abusive, I could have left. So now I'm the victim, but I stayed and I kept going and kept going. So you can't play victim to circumstances that you create. If I told Bryant up front in this relationship, Bryant, listen, if we date, let me tell you the do's and don'ts of dating me. You will not put your hands on me.
What you're not going to do is.
What won't happen, and see, had I done that, Bryant wouldn't have tried me by choking me. But because I didn't set that boundary, when you started screaming in my face, shouting, cussing me out, calling me names, I don't like that stuff either, but I just let it slide. Then it escalates to other things, and I want to go tell everybody what you did. But did you tell the person it's unacceptable for them to put their hands on you?
I want to sit there for a moment. I want to now dig into the remorse, because I'm going to be honest. For some of us out there, and I'm going to put myself on the couch in this position as well, we can become people pleasers and we start to feel remorse or regret because we were not able, or guilty because we were not able to fulfill something that someone needed. And we wanted to say no. And so we did it anyway because we didn't want them to be upset, and we deal with that. Can you kind of help us work through and helping us to be free from the responsibility or the feeling of guilt in those moments?
Well, the feeling of guilt, like you said, it comes as a result of trying to be all things to all people. So for me, I was a people pleaser trying to do everything for everybody, but I had to realize that there's only one that can be all things to all people, and that's God. I can't do that. Those shoes are too big for me to feel.
Watch your voice, Reverend. You just turned that corner real fast.
Did I pivot? I mean, I think I pivoted, but I realized that I can't be all things to all people. So that alleviates the remorse and the guilt. And so because I pivoted, let me say this. The Bible says when it's in your hands to do good, do good. So when I can, I will. When I can't, I don't. And that's okay. And I don't feel a need to be the savior for everyone because we already have a savior that does a great job, and it ain't me. So because of that, I'm okay. That releases me of the guilt and the remorse to feel like I have to give everyone a yes, because sometimes giving other people a no is giving yourself a yes.
Did y'all hear that? Can you give that to us one more time, Dr. D-Monique?
Sometimes giving someone else a no is giving yourself a yes. So if I'm already overcommitted in time and I can't do it, saying no to overextending myself is giving myself a yes to rest and relaxation that I need because I'm already stretched too thin.
Oh, that's good.
So
that's good.
So how you practice it, I'm not saying no to you, I'm just saying yes to me.
And I matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. Let's be honest. We get into these relationships with people, and you've always been that person. And like you said, sometimes we've got to really do the work at looking in ourselves. Are you like this because you have an unhealthy need for the approval, acceptance of other people? I think that's where we get into finding out where your boundaries are. If you are a people pleaser, if you are a person that's obsessed with trying not to disappoint people, I can very well guarantee you, you have little to no boundaries at all. Would you agree with that, Dr. D.
Of
Monique?
course. And so, of course I do. And what happens, we don't become helpers, we become enablers. And those are two totally different things.
We don't become what?
So no, you're not a helper, you're an enabler. So what happens then, I become party to the dysfunction because I'm not helping you in the situation. I'm just enabling you to be more dysfunctional. Even if, and people think when you're talking about dysfunctional, is behavior. No, it could actually be time. If you're a bad steward of your time and you always have to call me at the last minute for the birthday party, can you go get the cake, the balloons, and the candles? I become an enabler if I always step in when you can't manage your time and I'm always saving the day. Well, I don't have it on my chest and I'm not going to save the day. So sometimes you have to help people by removing yourself and letting them fall and letting them see the importance of managing their own time. Because if I always come through every time you mismanage your time, then I've enabled you to continue that pattern of behavior. I haven't helped you become better.
Y'all, I'm speechless. I'm speechless because this conversation, and let me be very clear on this, Dr. D. Monique. It's not like this is uncommon. This is everywhere. Now, can you take a few moments to talk to the people who are friends and family members with individuals who don't have boundaries and should set them, but they continue to cross those boundaries that they know need to be set? Can you talk to the boundary crossers for a moment? Because they're on here. I know they're watching.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, the boundary crossers will continue to be boundary crossers when no one sets boundaries for them. So if you make a pound cake and it's for 5 people, but then I eat it all and everybody starts, now you know she know all that one for her. Now she could have saved somebody else some, but nobody addresses me. What happens when that next pound cake? I'm gonna do the exact same thing. So what happens, boundary crossers will only be stopped by a boundary setter. So next time the pound cake come in the house, the boundary setter say, hold on, let's be clear. This belongs to all of us. This is community property. We all need to get some. So Danielle, you can't eat all of it by yourself. Now someone stepped up to set a boundary. So now it forces the boundary crosser to deal with, okay, I just can't do what I want to do. But until boundaries are set, the boundary crossers are fine because why? They're getting what they want. You know, when people say somebody, yeah, people say they want their cake and eat it too. Well, why have cake and not eat it? So that's the craziest thing in the world for someone to say they just want their cake and eat it too. Well, I've never had a cake that I just looked at. So, yeah.
We don't buy cake to look at it, people. We don't do that.
No.
I just, you know, and it comes in so many different forms. You know, turning off your phone at a certain time of the day and saying, no, I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not taking phone calls at this point. We talked about giving money to people, but there's other ways, you know, just doing and being available sometimes can be a violation. Sometimes you have to put a out for lunch sign, do not disturb sign on your life so that you can set a boundary of, hey, and then you have to watch those things that people call nostalgic and say, oh, it's just what we do. Well, if what we do is hurting me, then what we do I got to set that boundary. And I think a lot of times, Dr. D. Monique, what I've seen, especially with some relationships around me, is that it's very easy. If you don't say anything, people really won't know. They really won't know how bad it is. Like, you've got to say something. And maybe if you're out there watching today, if you hear nothing goes from our conversation today, you have to say something. You're in a household and you're freezing cold every day and you've never said you don't like it that cold. Say something about it, you know? They keep buying
Exactly.
you red stuff.
And it
No,
seems,
you
I'm
go, Doc.
sorry, it seems like these are small things, but actually they're not small things, because what happens, it's the culmination of small things that become big things. If this is my house, I ought to be comfortable too. So what we do, and so then what we teach ourselves in essence is that we don't matter. Like you said earlier, I don't matter, because what happens, I start allowing things that I should set boundaries on, I don't set boundaries on. And then it becomes a culmination of things. Then I snap and everybody looking like, what's wrong with her?
Yep.
No, you do matter. If it's 20 degrees in the house, okay, y'all, how we gonna come up with a happy medium with this thermostat? I might have to get a weighted blanket, but we're going to do something so everybody can be comfortable around here. But again, it's those small things that we allow to happen. And then the small things become bigger things. And then you'll wake up one day and you're totally unhappy with every relationship in your life because you haven't set any boundaries for any relationships. And you're the only person that's not getting what you want. Everybody else is happy.
Mm.
So I'm not going to be
Now,
unhappy at the expense of everybody around me being happy. Mm-mm.
right, right. So let me flip this really quickly. Is there ever a negative side of, is there a way that you can set too many boundaries?
No, you can never have too many boundaries, because what's important to me is important to me. So I think that's another thing. Well, ooh, you can't do nothing around her. You can't say nothing around him. We would always joke about our, the Pentecostal people, the older Pentecostal generation, that everything was the devil. Bowling was the devil. Watching them going to the movies was the devil. Red lipstick was the devil. But one thing we can say about the saints of old, they didn't budge on what the boundaries were and the expectations.
Yeah.
You got to be in the house by the time the street light come on. You better come in the house or you locked on the porch. If you can't wear pants, you couldn't wear pants. You just couldn't. So the thing is, they set those boundaries and they honored them and they expected and enforced the people around them respecting those boundaries. It's never too many, because what it takes for me, it may not take for you. So whatever your expectations are for the people in your life, I don't care if it's a list of 90, because the people that really love you, the people that really want to be around you, they'll respect those things. The people that don't, then you give them an invitation to go find another tribe to run with, because this ride ain't
Now,
for you.
I'm about to make somebody upset now. I asked that question because there's a person watching and they've tried to set boundaries with their mama or their daddy. And it's like, but if you love me, you do what I say. And they don't want to do that because it pushes them over the edge. They don't want to come over for Thanksgiving dinner this year because they don't feel safe in that environment. They don't want to do the family tradition this year because it's and their boundary is no, but they're received as either disrespect or rejection, or what do we say to that person who is just in that tough space even with their family?
So if they're in that tough space with the family, with the pressure of coming to and it's coming up to the holidays and you don't really want to go, and then when the family will, this is where everyone will be, and if you loved us, if you would come. Well, if you love me, you'll respect that I don't want to come, because it works both ways. Love me enough to respect my choice. And that doesn't mean I don't love you. That doesn't mean I don't love the family. But at this point, I'm not in a place where I want to be or need to be around everyone. And that's all you have to say, because you have to explain the decision.
I hope somebody heard that. I hope you heard that your no is enough and needs no explanation. I'm gonna put that
Yeah,
on a
it's
t-shirt. My no,
yeah,
no explanation.
Yeah, no is a complete sentence. It doesn't need a forward. It doesn't need, a long drawn out story at the end. Oh, Brian, are you coming back for Thanksgiving? No. And just wait for it.
And that's it.
Well, I really wish you would come. Yeah, I know you do, but I'm not coming this year. And just smile. And I don't feel a need to explain, because that's a boundary that I'm setting. And so let me say this for people that don't have boundaries. How do you, I know the question is, well, I know I don't have boundaries. Well, what do I do? Start setting them. Never too late to set boundaries, because you have to let people know, okay, it's a new day in a new way. iPhone, they always see those little messages telling you that you got to update the system, and it fixes all these bugs. You just have to let people know that I'm updating my software.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm updating my personal software. And so it's going to fix some bugs that I may have had in the past. So some of the things that you probably did in the past, I'm just not going to allow those things moving forward.
That's good. That's good. That's real good. So I ask, is it okay to change boundaries, for my boundaries to change over time? Is that okay?
Yes, because what I expected and wanted at 24, at 34, I may not expect and want the same things. Because again, it's your life. You have the right to change your mind about what you want and how you want to do it. And again, the people that love you and want to be a part of your life will honor those things. And the people that don't, it's okay, and there's nothing wrong with them. So I don't want to send a message that if somebody violates boundaries, it's something wrong with them. No, that just means, it doesn't mean that you're wrong. You're just wrong for me.
That's good. Doesn't mean that you're wrong. You're just wrong for me. That's good. That's good right there. So Dr. D. Monique, as always, our time just seems to run out so quickly. Can you give us some parting words? First, thank you for this conversation about boundaries. Listen, it's definitely necessary. We're entering to the holiday season. We're trying to get our lives back on track after this pandemic and the state of our nation. Can you help us, give us some parting words to just work with as we work through setting boundaries?
So as we work through setting boundaries, what I want people to know is okay to have boundaries, communicate those boundaries clearly and concisely, and then don't expect anything less. And that's just the key to setting boundaries. Not a hard formula, probably hard to follow through with, but know what you want, say what you want, and follow through with your expectations.
That's good. That's good. That's so good. I hope you all enjoyed that. Dr. D. Monique, if we're interested in getting in touch with you, how do we find you?
On all social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Dr. D. Monique.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for joining us today for Sound Mind. Listen, my parting words to you are just to echo something that Dr. D. Monique said earlier. Your no needs no explanation. Be confident in your no. You need to set the boundaries. It's going to be tough. It's going to be uncomfortable. Some of you may not be confrontational, but it's necessary for your health. Trust me, you will feel better. Until next time, take care. Be safe out there. Please wear your mask. And until next time, take care of your sound mind.